Sometimes he gets a little impatient, but that's hard not to with cows, especially.
He's not scared to try new things. I wait for Jim to do things sometimes and see how it works out for Jim, and then I do it. So he's very, how would you put it?
He's really aware of the fact that ranching is a business, just like any other business, and it has to be treated like one.
Cutting edge.
Articulate. Leader.
A willingness to listen, and he's funny.
Jokes a
He's
lot.
crazy about a dog I have.
Cargo shorts and wool
He
socks.
just changes the way he walks a little bit.
And face just covered in sunscreen. It's not rubbed in.
That makes everybody laugh more.
Just a typical dad.
We have good laughs at each other's expense quite often.
And selfies with the dog.
He really loves that dog, and it's crazy.
And so you get a little humor in there, and you spread a little humor too. So that's the enjoyable part. I have vivid memories of playing with the ranch equipment with our neighbors down the road. We had a full-scale farm. We had tractors and plows, and we had all kinds of equipment that our ranch didn't have. So, but it was fun to play ranch and farm. So that's probably my earliest memories, and playing. I got into ranching when I got out of the Army. I had a college career that I was getting an A+ in party. So I took a few years off and I went to the service, and that was good. One of the best things I've done. And when I came home, my plan was, I'll see what comes up. And I decided I'd go back to school, and I liked school that time, and I finished school, and I came back and I said, well, I'll commit to helping my parents for a year, and then I'll see where that leads. And I had a good year. I enjoyed it. And I said, well, I think I kind of like the ranch thing. So I went back, and I've been ranching ever since. A favorite day is when it all goes right. When it just clicks along, especially when if you have friends or family around, and it's a big day, branding day. I would probably say that it's a big day for every single operation, whether it's a giant one or a small one. When it's a smooth, successful day, and you can relax it and say, there they go, and they're gone. That's a rewarding day. The hardest day, it was a combination of weather, a long weaning day, stress. We weaned the calves, we brought them home. All was well for about a half hour. Then they blew out of the corral. Then it rained and snowed. Then we finally got them gathered back up, and then we had more weather. And then they started to die. And so over the period of 2 days, we lost 20 calves, and it was depressing there for a few hours. Now, the solution to that is to cross your fingers, because you can't control the weather. And you can build a dirtier corral, but they can still blow out. And so you just try and hope that it doesn't happen again. And when it does, you can tell yourself, well, it's happened before, and we survived, so we'll survive this one. We don't really have a name for the ranch. You can call it Hellyer Ranch. We just refer to it as the place. If I could tell people something a little bit more about our family or our operation, it's just that I think we care as much about the land as the next person does. Everybody that I'm related to and know that owns land feels that they're just fortunate to own it. We're really lucky to be here. For me, conservation is just being able to have a goal that looks across or through or over a boundary, whether it's a fence line or a property line. You can put the two together. That's how I look at conservation. Programs are where conservation and landowners really come together because they're voluntary. So here's a juniper treatment. I was a little skeptical at first, as this is the calving pasture and there's a lot of cover in there. You have to get past the paranoia, which is hindering progress. My first reaction was, they really cut the yard. But it's come in and it's really blended now. The juniper treatments, that was a sage-grouse project. It's definitely producing more forage. Well, it's about conservation, but it's also about the cow. And there's one, she's having a good drink right now. So we have drilled wells, rehabilitated reservoirs. Fish are all here today. You can see it bubbles. This is Oregon Springs. It's a riparian project combined with a water development. We fenced 160 acres and we put a pump down there. The point of the 2 tanks is to disperse cattle away from the riparian area during the hot season. And so the animals say just everything comes here. And the tank, it doesn't have a lid on it, doesn't have a fence on it, so it's free access for whatever comes. Going in a direction this way is this side route for the deer as they migrate to the desert. They come through here. This is a new 3-wire fence. This used to be 5. And so for the deer, we transitioned to 3. This works well because we're on both sides of it. So we're not managing for other people's cattle, we're managing for ours, and we can manage for the deer at the same time.
This stuff looks pretty good in here, based on what I can see from historic diaries, early photographs, and paintings by people that made the migration in the covered wagons. Like, start? Go ahead. Oh, okay, sorry. My name is Todd Gunther, and I'm a professor of anthropology and history and teach the archaeology program at Central Wyoming College. So what you need to imagine is lines of covered wagons coming down that hill, coming down that trail, and coming across the river. And this is like the hub of a whole series of trails here. So this is a major human migration corridor. What we think of now as this quiet, isolated, desert, rural wilderness landscape was a raucous city on wheels. The old trading post of Burnt Ranch that was burned in 1857, 1866, 1868 is now the summer ranch headquarters in the South Pass area for the Hellyer family. The only place where you could have this mass migration crossing the continent. And so it's critically important to the survival of the Union. Oddly enough, sometimes it was garrisoned by 120 cavalry, and sometimes there were 10. So yeah, it would have really been miserable to be one of the 10, because they were, if you went out, you got killed.
With the help of our friend Todd Gunther, we're seeking to have the property designated as a National Historic Landmark. It's important to preserve that so that people don't forget how you ended up where you are. And it just feels good, it's for us. There's no middle of the road. You either have an intact landscape or you have a fragmented landscape. You can look across the valley and see these houses coming. They come out of the ground just like the spring grass, and that's the real world. That's the world that everybody else lives in. And we're raising livestock for a good lifestyle. The market signal is not the cattle. The market signal is houses. And with the easement next door, with the easement to the south, it's a pretty good place for houses, but that's not what we want, but that's the market signal. It's not the habitat signal. And that's the irony of ranching right now, is that you're kind of in 2 worlds. You can be in this lifestyle world by choice, but you have to recognize that that's not the rest of the world. The rest of the world would turn us into houses. If you lose agriculture, then you're going to lose the open space. It's got a pretty good address, Wyoming. You're not going to turn off that migration of people. It can go up and it can go down, but it's not going to stop. And more people is more pressure, and more pressure is going to squeeze the corridors. Conservation takes a lot like democracy. It takes people to sit at the table and listen to the other person, and America has a hard time doing that right now, and that's not good. And so it's not just democracy and conservation. They're pretty much related. You're not really going to have conservation if you don't have democracy. That's a pretty important thing to me, and I couldn't imagine living anyplace else. What do I hope this land will look like in 50 years or 100 years? There's a chance it'll look just like it does. A chance. It's awfully good this way, so we'll try and keep it that way.
Look at this one. That's one with the Kahlua in it.
It has something to do with the shape of these individuals here. That these represented people, not objects or beasts, but people.